Welcome back to the 8-Man Breakdowns podcast. This is where we discuss all phases of the game of football, including philosophy, play concepts, questions, and more. Today's guest is Coach David Strait. Coach Strait is a former head coach and current assistant coach at Osborne High School. He's heading into his sixth season overall as a high school coach and third year now at Osborne as defensive coordinator. I've known Coach Strait since 2017, and I was lucky enough to get the chance to coach with him for 3 years altogether. He's a great coach, but an even better person. Coach, thanks for being on the podcast today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Start by talking about yourself, your football background, and how you got started coaching football.
Well, I grew up in Concordia, Kansas, and played football, basketball, baseball, and ended up going to Southwestern College to play football. Went there for a year and ended up transferring to Sterling College, and I finished my college career out there. Going through high school, my head coach kind of always put a little bug in my ear about coming back to Concordia and helping him coach, because I was one of those guys that wasn't probably the best on the field, but I always knew the scouting report and always knew my job. So he's always kind of pushing me to coach. After Sterling, I interviewed for a couple jobs and ended up taking a job at Solomon, where I would meet Coach Tiernan and coach there for 2 years as an assistant coach. And then when he left to go to Osborne, I was the head coach for a year. And after that year, I moved over to Osborne, and that's where I'm at to this day.
Was there anyone specific in your life that impacted your path as a coach?
Yeah, Tim Lambert was my high school coach. And as I was saying, I spent a lot of time with him and really saw what a coach was supposed to be. And that's when I really figured out that that's what I wanted to be. And I was lucky enough to play for his brothers at Sterling College, where, again, they were outstanding coaches, and then got lucky again to meet Coach Tiernan, who, as a lot of people know, is one of the best coaches in 8-man. So I've been blessed with the people that I've been able to meet through coaching.
So, Coach, thinking back to your time at Solomon as a head coach, what would you say you learned the most in that season?
Well, I learned that there was a lot more to coaching than the X's and O's. Adversity hit right away with a couple players getting injured, and being able to deal with that was something that you're never ready for that. I was with a group of boys that we graduated several seniors the year before. After we had made it to the state championship game. The group of boys had never won a football game before, through little kids football and junior high football. Now they were going to be relied on to carry the team. So all in all, we had a 4-5 season, and pretty successful for guys that had never won any games. So I was pretty happy for them. But personally, I realized that I'm not sure I was ready to be a head coach yet. The way the circumstances fell, it made the most sense, and probably was the easiest thing to do, was just have me, who at the time was the defensive coordinator, to be the head coach. So kind of by default, I was the guy. And like I said, I'm not sure I was quite ready for it, but we took it on, and all in all, probably not a bad season. And I did enjoy that year, but when the opportunity came I could come be the defensive coordinator here at Osborne, I just jumped right on it. I've been up here a few times that year at Solomon, and really fell in love with the community and the tradition of this place. And getting the opportunity to coach with Coach Tiernan again, I figured, why not? Couldn't pass that opportunity up.
So, playing junior high and high school football at Concordia High School, and then college at Sterling, you said, what would you say drew you into 8-man, or kind of kept you coaching at the 8-man level? What would you say?
Well, really, I had never seen an 8-man game. Being in Concordia, Clifton Clyde was always right there, and they always had a bunch of success. And the normal answer we always gave is, "Oh, 8-man football is not football. It's different. You just got to have a fast guy and you're good." Well, never, like I said, I never seen a game until I graduated. I was doing my student teaching, and one of my buddies was coaching over at Beloit St. John's, and I went over and watched the game and just fell in love with it. I mean, uh, that was the first 8-man game I ever had seen, and I thought to myself, maybe this is something that I'd kind of like to go to a small school that plays 8-man, and I've been at one now for this is year 6 of 8-man football, and I can honestly say I mean I love it. It's a good game. The stereotypical, oh, you got to have a fast guy. That's not true. It's football. You still got to tackle, you still got to block, and you still got to execute. So it is. I fell in love with the game.
So, Coach, tell us about last season. What did you learn the most about your team throughout the year?
Last year we went 6-3 and started our season off with a kind of a tough loss with Hill City, and um, we're like, well, we got to find our identity. We were pretty happy because we thought we had a bunch of kids that were real competitive, and we knew that as the season would go on, we'd get better. And sure enough, as the season moved on, we really did. We were peaking at the right time, and then unfortunately, we had a couple players get injured that kind of limited how far we really thought we could go. We lost first round of the playoffs, and the season really didn't end the way we wanted it to. But I thought all in all, we got a lot of freshmen and sophomores onto the field, which is always great for the future, but isn't always convenient for your seniors. I'd say that the biggest thing I learned was when you have that younger group of kids that was playing for us was they're very excited about playing football. They love to compete. They love to work. So it really just gave us a good view of what the future of Osborne football could look like. So it made us very excited for this year.
Coach, you said injuries were a big factor last season. I'm going to kind of turn that question into this. What would you say is your opinion on athletes playing multiple sports?
I think that you want your kids to participate in as many things that they can. It makes you more well-rounded. If you're trying to play at the collegiate level, I know. I mean, most college coaches are going to be pretty happy with you playing 3 sports. I mean, everybody's heard that classic story of the kid that, oh, I'm just going to work out on my own instead of going out for basketball or wrestling or whatever. And everybody knows that never works out. Or the kid that, oh, I'm not going to do track. I'm just going to run on my own. But as I said, it never works out that way. I think you should participate and compete in as many things as you can. And as far as injuries go with that, I think that the more sports you do, the more movements you do, the lessens your opportunity to get injured.
I agree 100%. And I think lifting weights in the summertime, obviously being mobile and being loose and flexible throughout the summertime before the season starts is also a huge thing.
Oh, for sure.
Okay, Coach, back to the playing 11-man in high school and college and now coaching 8-man. What would you say is like the biggest difference defensively that you see or have seen from 8-man to 11-man?
I mean, I would say, I mean, like when I was in high school, we played a 4-2-5, and then going to college, both at Southwestern and Sterling, they played primarily a 3-4 defense. So I'd say, I mean, when I moved into 8-man, like I said, I didn't have a clue what was going on. I didn't know anything about the 8-man game. I didn't know what defenses were popular or what people did. And Solomon, we played primarily a 3-2, and as time went on, we kind of adjusted to a little bit of a 2-man. As the game was changing more to a lot of spread teams, and then as I moved over here to Osborne, we ran first year I was here. We ran a 3-2, and for whatever reason, it wasn't fitting our players. So again, we made a change to a 2-man, and it seems like every year somebody's running something different. I mean, you have the the Hill Cities that run their 2-2 stack with their outside linebackers. You have the other 2-man fronts that where they line up their D tackles on the guards and stack their linebackers on them, and our 2-man is a little bit different than that. I mean, we have D ends, and it's more of a 2-3. It's kind of one of those deals where that first year I was here, we went to Hanover and we'd played them running a 3-2, and we were like, well, it didn't work out so good when we just tried to read and react. It wasn't working, so we kind of put our heads together and came up with a different defense, and for our players it seems to be working pretty well for them. I think what makes it fun for them is that every kid wants the opportunity to go, oh, all I got to do is blitz here. And our defense, it allows our players to play fast, and I think they just really have fun playing in it.
I had this discussion with another coach not long ago about the 3-2 defense. We run a 3-2 myself. Our team does. But what would you say is the main reason the 3-2 is so popular?
I think it gives you the diversity to line up to any formation that you see. I mean, you can play spread, you can do different things with your monster that allows you if they're playing a lot of double tight. So I think it just gives you the most diversity. When you're playing those teams that motion a lot, it's just the most convenient defense to make those adjustments to. Whereas like our 2-man, we had to come up with all sorts of rules and different things. And I mean, once the kids got it, it was great, but it took some time to get everything down with that. So I think in the 3-2, I don't think you have near as much thinking as far as adjustments go.
I agree. I think allowing the kids to play fast and not really think, and they know kind of the rules, I think that's 100%. And then on top of that, I think a lot of defensive coordinators in 8-man feel, I don't know, more comfortable with 5 guys in the box at all times, so they can kind of, like you said, they can line up to all sorts of formations and change coverages, but they also have 5 guys in the box to slow down the run at any time. So I agree. I think that's definitely a great answer of why it's so popular. I agree. Coach, what would you say is like the safest coverage scheme in 8-man? What would you say?
I would say cover 3. Traditionally, I think, I mean, we were talking about the 3-2 teams. I mean, traditionally, that's what their base coverage is. I'd say simplest would be man. However, if you don't really have the guys to play man, it does make it a little tougher. As far as cover 3 goes, as long as you can get the pressure up front, I think it's a great coverage to run. We used to be a zone team when I was at Solomon. We played a lot of zone, and it fit our guys, and it just kind of fit exactly what we wanted to do. But when I came over to Osborne, we played zone to start off, and it really wasn't working well for us. So we kind of adopted the philosophy that we're going to bring pressure and play man, and hopefully the quarterback doesn't have enough time to make a decision, and that means we don't have to cover near as long. So it kind of gets us an opportunity to get the ball out of his hands a lot quicker, and instead of where in zone, if you have the guys to get the pressure up front, it's great, but if you don't, that allows a lot of time for quarterbacks to make plays.
Coach, what would you say is easier to teach or coach to your new players? Talking about zone and man, which one would you say is easier to teach or coach to those new guys?
I would say man, as far as them knowing their responsibility, actually covering the guy, I would say is more difficult. But as far as zone goes, it's kind of one of those deals where, I mean, you think basketball, and it's hard to get a kid to really understand that there's not a lot of difference between a zone in basketball and a zone in football. I mean, if a guy comes into your area, he's yours, and you don't leave your zone. You don't chase people out of your zone. So I mean, I think as far as that goes, I think man is the easiest to teach new kids that don't, even if it's a kid that doesn't know much about football or has never played football before. If you say that's your guy, as long as he doesn't catch the ball, you did your job. I think that's as simple as it gets.
So I know you've been a defensive coordinator your entire career, an 8-man so far, but you're also an offensive coach. So let's go back to the offensive side for a minute. What did you run as your schemes offensively at Solomon High School?
Well, Solomon, we ran a lot of trap and a lot of power. Our real fast guy broke his arm one of the first few plays of the season, and he was playing quarterback for us. So that kind of, when it's his right arm and he's a right-handed quarterback, that kind of limited our passing game and our outside run game because he was now not available. So we went to more of a running a lot of trap and a lot of pulling both our guard and our tight end for a lot of counter and power.
I know you said your primary quarterback got hurt early in the season, but what about your passing concepts? Any specific passing concepts to adjust with the early injury?
Well, we ran a lot of play action off of that, and unfortunately, I think we maybe threw the ball 30 times all season because the guy that we had to move to quarterback had never played quarterback before in his life. So we really didn't throw the ball too much. It really was not our strength. And of course, you're throwing the ball, you got to have guys to catch it. And our best receiver had to just move to quarterback. So, I mean, we ended up running the ball probably, I'd say 75-80% of the time. And we did run some slip screens with our backs and some bubble screens, but we tried to keep it short, quick passing game and then try to hit some home runs on our play action.
Definitely. I really like how you use play action set up off your run game. I mean, you always hope to stay healthy, but you definitely have to be able to adjust at any time in the 8-man game. So, Coach, you being an 11-man guy your entire life, junior high, high school, college, and your football schemes obviously being a little bit different. How would you say that translated into the 8-man game for you when you got into coaching?
Well, I mean, in high school, we were a wishbone team with Coach Lambert being a Smith Center guy. We ran the wishbone, and we had, I mean, I think my junior year we had two formations, and then we got real crazy my senior year, and I think we had three. So it was primarily run the football. I mean, everybody knew, and I mean, still to this day, you go watch Smoky Valley play. I mean, I have a good idea that they're going to run the ball 90% of the time. So moving into college, we ran the spread option there, so that was quite a bit different than what I was used to at in high school. So me being a guard in high school, we never pulled. Moving into college, we pulled all the time, so that was a big change. But then moving into 8-man, Coach Tiernan was very much run the football first. So I kind of adopted. I've always kind of had the philosophy after through high school and even in college when we ran the spread option, we didn't throw the ball a whole lot. So everything that every person or every coach I've ever been around has always had the philosophy that three bad things can happen when you throw the football. So I've always been a pretty big believer in that. But also to that point though, if you have the guys that you can utilize to throw the football, why don't you? I mean, if you got the athletes to do it, good. If you have a quarterback that can get the ball there, then throw the football. But I've always been a big believer of starting off being able to run the football is the most important thing. If you can't stop a team running the football, then you're going to be in for a long day. So that'd be my belief on that.
So, Coach, what would you say is something you look forward to most this year with your team this season?
Well, as I said before, with us having to play a bunch of young guys last season. Those guys are all sophomores and juniors now. We only had one freshman move up, and all of them, for the most part, I mean, we have 15 guys, and I'd say 13 of those guys could be on the field and help us in some sort of way. I mean, the best part about them is that all 15 of them have pretty good attitudes. They all love football. They all love to work hard. And now that doesn't always translate to wins because your kids love football. But as you being the coach, it makes you very excited about going to practice. I mean, not very many people are fans of practice, but as a coach, when you got kids that love being there, love working hard, it makes things go a lot better. It makes you want to do everything you can to make these kids successful. So I think just when you have good kids with good attitudes and they love the football, it makes coaching them very enjoyable.
Coach, what would you say is your biggest piece of advice to any future football coaches out there?
I would say make sure if you're going to take on being a head coach, make sure you surround yourself with the best people you can get. Me, the first year I was a head coach, at the time I had you moving to Axtell, Coach Tiernan moving to Osborne, and then Coach Long moving to Wilson. I was lost. I had no assistant coaches. It was a struggle to find anybody. And luckily, I was able to find Mike Kilgore, who is still the head coach at Solomon. He was able to help me, and he did a very good job. But make sure you surround yourself with good people that you trust, because when you're the head coach, sometimes you might try to take on too much, and it's nice to be able to have somebody that if you run the offense, that you can say, "Hey, you go run the defense," and vice versa. I mean, if you're the defensive guy, go coach the defense, and you trust the guy to run the offense. It takes a load off of you. I think if you just surround yourself with good people, I think you give yourself an opportunity, and people that believe the same things you do. I mean, if you want buy-in from your coaches, and if you let your coaches buy in, then chances are you can get your players to buy in as well.
Coach, thanks again for your time and for coming on the podcast today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Again, that's Coach David Strait, assistant coach and defensive coordinator at Osborne High School, heading into his third year there at Osborne as the defensive coordinator. And that's going to do it for this episode of the 8-Man Breakdowns podcast. Remember, videos come out every Tuesday night, so be sure to tune in. If you have a question for me, the best way to reach me is by commenting in the comment section below. If you've learned anything or enjoyed any of these videos, please click subscribe and check out some of my other videos right here on the screen. And like always, thanks for tuning in, guys.